Our Bishop Easterling, offered words this week that I believe speak directly to our call as people running this race and as people of faith. Speaking of D.C. and echoing Dr. King, she wrote of the stark divide of two Americas being painfully visible. In one America, people walk freely, confident their rights will be protected, and in the other, neighbors sleep under bridges, face hunger, and live under the heavy presence of National Guard troops and federalized policing. And she offered us a warning. She warned us against fear-driven narratives that justify force and federal overreach. And she calls on the church to reject any policy that treats people as threats or inconveniences rather than beloved siblings. And let me say this real quick, because above all the things that have bothered me this week, more than anything, there's one particular thing that I've really struggled with as I've tried to decide what I think about all of this. Outside of this sermon, outside of my role as a pastor, just as a person living in this region, as a person who's lived in D.C., who's lived in a part of the city that wasn't the greatest when I was living there, and the part that really has gotten to me the most, we can despise homeless encampments and the tents on the streets, but not because they're a blight on the beautiful city. We despise them because in the wealthiest nation in the history of the world, some people have no place to go but a tent on the streets. And our solution has to be something more than taking all of someone's worldly possessions and throwing them in the back of a garbage truck. There has to be something more than that. There has to be something more for these people who have nothing. And we take the little bit they have and we throw it in the back of a garbage truck. Where is their dignity? Where is their humanity? And the number of times I've heard on the news this week, and they're moving them out of the city. And people say, to where? And no one knows. These are human beings. There's a lot I can talk about with the militarizing of the police and all of that, but one thing that's gotten me more than anything is how are we as the people of Christ allowing our city to throw people's stuff, the little bit they have, the one place they have to be, in the back of a garbage truck, treating it like trash and saying to these individuals, you are trash. Because it's not pretty. Obviously, I'm very passionate about that. I only wrote a little bit of that there. This is something that has really gotten to me this week because our unhoused neighbors are real people. And it's frustrating, because this isn't solving anything. It's just moving it out of our sight. Bishop went on to say that housing is a God-given right, and caring for the unhoused is not optional. It is a moral imperative rooted in the command to love. And she acknowledged that across our conference, she sees churches building housing and mentoring youth and feeding the hungry and repurposing resources to serve the community. And her final word was to urge us to continue to leverage our witness for bread and shelter and not for walls or weapons, so that we might help heal the two Americas and live as one body in Christ. Friends, I hope you hear these words not as me lecturing you. It's certainly not meant to be that. This is my frustration. This is my needing to express words of frustration with our present world. Our world that has always been broken and that God has always been inviting us to heal. And in the midst of that, we hear these words from the bishop. I'm going to read that again. She urged us to continue to leverage our witness for bread and shelter, not walls or weapons, so that we might heal the two Americas and live as the one body in Christ.